Okay, all right. We can do all the...
Get a little background.
Would you like any water? We can bring over a couple of glasses of water. Would you
How
like?
about a cup of coffee?
Sure. Do you like cream, sir?
No, just black.
Okay. All right. And yeah, perfect.
Perfect.
Nice. I'll be right back.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Fitz. Wallace, I thought I'd give you a little background of why we're here today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm a Rotarian here in town, have been for about 28 years. And Chris is also a Rotarian in our club, who runs Garden Court. And in our community service meeting, he came up with a suggestion of doing some videotapes of very interesting people here at Garden Court that have a background and history that would be interesting not only to themselves, but also to their families or anybody else possibly. So our Rotary Club also works with guardian scholars. Do you have any idea what they are? Okay. They are typically emancipated foster children, which happens when they turn 18, that they've been in foster care and they've been kind of pretty much kicked out on their own to basically make it in the world the way they can, without parents.
So they're guided up to the time that...
Till they're 18, typically. Now, we are working with guardian scholars at Santa Barbara City College. Approximately 1% of emancipated foster children go to college. About 1% of those actually graduate from college. These two people are guardian scholars, one at Santa Barbara City College and one at UCSB, who are hopefully going to be one of those 1% that make it through college.
Right.
And so Avante also is involved with media at Santa Barbara City College, so she volunteered to assist us in having a conversation with you and videotaping it, and you being in charge of what to do with it if you want.
Okay.
We heard that you have a great background, a great interesting background, and do you have any questions for Avante?
No.
No? Or Tony?
How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing well. And yourself? I'm
Pretty good.
doing well. It's a long day. I went to take my GRE test today, but because I wasn't in the system, so it was a little hassle. On the way to come over here.
Next time.
Yeah, so my graduate exam.
So how far are these young people from graduation? How far are you from graduation?
I will graduate with 3 degrees this May, so in about a couple of months, and then I'll start on my 3rd year
Thank you.
at college.
Your 3rd year in college?
Yes.
I'm a senior.
I don't need this. Don't waste it.
Apologize. Yeah, thank you.
I'm a senior. I'm graduating this year. I'm walking in
Do you
15
accept
months.
tips?
Yeah.
No
You can
tips?
hold that for tomorrow. It's rough.
And then I'm going to grad school for my PhD.
Oh, wow. And what?
Sociology.
Sociology?
Sociology.
How appropriate.
Very interesting.
Great.
And your major?
My major is on television production.
Oh. So you're getting off early.
Yes, I am.
So the thing also, Wallace, is that we have about a half hour scheduled for this, and I think Shirley's going to come down at 5 o'clock. So I just put it in time frame. I'm going to be the timer.
Okay.
I'll be in charge of that. Maybe I'll inflect a couple of questions once in a while because I'm a little bit older, and so I can kind of probably relate to some of your stories as well.
Okay.
So why don't we get started? I think did we start that already? We already did.
And then we just announced the interview is starting.
Okay, the interview is starting. I think one of the first things we want to be as part of the video is your name and where you're from.
My name is Wallace Kennedy Shepherd. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. At the age of 17, I joined the Air Force. Was shipped to California.
Wow.
And haven't left since.
Good move.
But it was always a desire to go to California. So it met my life plan.
That's great.
Yeah.
How was it like being in the Army? You
Air
said?
Force.
Air Force. How was it being in the Air Force?
It was different.
Different.
I'll put it that way. The whole thing is it's a little different having someone or have to follow a set of guidelines or rules or how you conduct your life. And
Right.
that's what the Army, Air Force, and all the military is about, is that you're trained to be a soldier. And you learn how to live with it. You don't like it, but you live with it.
Right. Interesting.
Now, Chris was telling us that you have quite an amazing background as far as being involved with the beginning of the civil rights movement.
Yeah. I've been in it all my life.
Yeah, well,
When I was 18 in the Air Force, I got involved with the NAACP. And at that time, the military was segregated. I mean, it was very difficult for black people to advance in the military. You couldn't, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You looked at, you would either be cleaning barracks or doing menial labor. Very, very seldom were you given the opportunity to train to be anything but a laborer.
Wow.
I was fortunate in that I was one of the few blacks that was chosen to go to A&E school.
what kind of school?
A&E,
A&E?
aircraft and engineering. I enjoyed it. Wanted to be an aircraft mechanic, but you know, and that's what I was trained for. But it also put you in the front of all the problems that existed at that time. When I went to A&E school, I was not expected to succeed. Matter of fact, you were encouraged to fail.
Right.
So you began to realize. Well, I guess I learned early what the system, or how the system was working, and how it was not working. What was and what was not. The big problem is that black people during my early years didn't go anywhere. I mean, they couldn't. They weren't expected to go anywhere. There's some people who go beyond the norm, but the norm was to say to you that you're a second-class citizen and that you should live like one. You know?
Wow.
So when I went to A&E school, it was kind of nice, you know, to go, but also it was something that was new and something different. As I went to A&E school, I began to realize, you know, how divided the country was and how it was made to, you know, it was designed that way. I can always remember thinking that I was going to get out of the Air Force and work on airplanes, you know, for a civilian. But at that time, there were no black aircraft mechanics working for United or any other airline. You know. So what I did is I began thinking that I was going to prepare to leave the Air Force. So I wrote a letter to United Airlines, telling them that I was an aircraft mechanic. I was being trained as an aircraft mechanic, and when I got out of the Air Force, I wanted to work for United. They told me to come in. They talked to me.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't tell them I was black.
I was just thinking, you know.
So when I went in, went over to San Francisco airport, right? You know, they said to me, how can we help you? I said, well, I talked to you guys, and you told me to come in and talk to you. I was going to A&E school, and I wanted to see if I get a job with United when I get out of the Air Force. And the guy looked at me straight in the face and said, we don't have any black mechanics, you know. And so I began to realize whatever I was going to do was going to be difficult. You know.
Would you say that that interview was more of a life-changing moment for you as a young 18-year-old trying to further
No, it wasn't a changing moment. It just confirmed.
confirming moment?
It was a confirming moment. It was a moment that confirmed the fact that America at that time was not ready for people like me, and that the country was making an effort to change what was, and that's why I went to A&E school. You know, I was one of the few that went to A&E school. But you know, even in the airports, it was difficult. You know? When I got out of A&E school and I was assigned to Travis Air Force Base, transit maintenance outfit, it was when I walked into the squadron, you know, on a flight line and told them who I was. They were all. It was like walking into a bar and saying, "Let's fight," you know,
Wow.
because they weren't ready for me to come, especially in transit maintenance. That was one of the premier squadrons, you know, and you didn't go to transit maintenance unless you were really sharp. You know? So I had my first soldier tell me, we were out in the flight line working on an aircraft, and he said to me, "Shepherd, I want to tell you something." I said, "What's that?" He says, "Well, look, one day we might be out here working, and I may accidentally, in anger and whatever I'm going to do, call you a nigger, but don't pay any attention to it, don't mean nothing." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, Sarge, I hear you." I said, "Let me tell you something, don't make that mistake.
Right.
Because I may just hurt you." You don't make any kind of mistake, you know. But you run into that all the time, you know. I remember at Travis Air Force Base. This is right here in California.
Right.
When we went to dances, the airmen, black airmen and white girls were separated on the dance floor. They weren't allowed to dance together. So it was a weird place to be at that time.
Right.
You know? But I keep saying I need to write my book about it, you know. But it was kind of weird to go through that. But I think about what my dad must have went through. Yeah, because he went to college, but he couldn't get a job as an administrator or as a technician.
Right.
He worked at Duquesne Smelting, which was a steel mill, all his life. You know, never could get above. And the only time he ever became a supervisor is when World War II, when the supervisors were called off to the military, and they slipped him in the slot there for a little while, you know, but it must have been rough on him. Yeah.
So Wallace, have you seen a lot of change in the last 60 years?
Oh yeah.
Based on what you've
Substantial
shared?
change. But the one thing is that the seeds of racism still exist. They still sprout seeds. They still grow. You still have people who lived in yesterday and try to turn tomorrow into yesterday,
Right.
and try to turn today in what was instead of what is. But that is a part of growth, and it's part of the American way. It's part of being an American, actually. I think most of you young people don't realize how fortunate you are to live in America. You know, America is probably the example for the world. I say even in religiously. what makes America different is that my grandfather was an ex-slave. My dad was segregated, was not allowed to go to a white college. He couldn't have went to a good school if he wanted to. A lot has changed. And the only reason it does change is because this is America. There's no problem that exists in America that we can't deal with or change, because it is who we are. The thing I get frightened about sometimes is that the young people don't realize what we've got. You know, it's different, and it's the best in the world.
Right.
And if we don't take care of it, we'll lose it. The other thing that gets me sometimes is I watch people with money forget how they got there. You know, they forget if it wasn't for America, they wouldn't be there.
Exactly.
You know, if they were in a foreign country, they would not have been allowed to excel or to exceed or to surpass certain families. You know, and America doesn't have that problem. We have I guess what's even a better example is to look who's president. Yeah.
Exactly.
Out of slavery comes the president of the United States. You know, a black president. Are we crazy? You know? But it's happened, and a lot more is going to happen. I think about the marches I've been in, and you know, I can remember once talking to Martin Luther King saying, "What are we doing? How come we're doing this? You know, why are we marching? You know."
So you actually marched with Martin Luther King?
Yeah, yeah.
What did he say to that question? Why are we doing this? What was his answer?
He said, stay here and watch. You'll learn, you know. If you don't already know, most of us already know, yeah, why we're doing it or why we did it, you know.
Learn by doing.
Yeah. But he was really super special. He loved mankind and loved the country. You learn in growing and coming through where I've been. You learn so much by doing. Yeah.
Right. What's really interesting is I take a cultural anthropology class at Santa Barbara City College here, and we were just talking about racism today, coincidentally, and we were talking about the difference between racism and how prejudice, you know, people have a mentality about others, and that's what racism is stemmed from, is just a difference of people. But racism takes it to another level, and I really think that America is different, and I completely agree with you in the sense that we show the example of we can talk about the things that we disagree about and try to fix them. And I think that's really important as well. You know, Tony, as a sociology major, really sees the gray area and really tries to dissect and analyze the differences that we do have and speak about them. Because it's important. Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power, but also confronting and addressing our ills is one of the most important things that we do in America that others don't do.
Right.
We talk about our shortcomings. We confront our racist philosophies and problems.
Right.
Matter of fact, we even commit them to history. You know, other people try to erase them. We admit them. You know, but I've never. Well, there's been times when I was executive director of an agency that I guess what it is that America is different. We tend to face off on those things that are controversial, and we don't run away from problems. We tend to confront them and deal with them.
Right.
I remember when I first became the director of an agency, my son said to me, "What are you going to do, Dad?" I said, "I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm the boss." You know. But I tell you another thing, is that it means I can make changes without worrying about them not going anywhere. I can actually change how this agency acts. I can make rules that make the agency more relevant and more responsive to the people it serves. And that's what we did. Yeah. It's not every day. I guess that's one of the things that gets me. It's not every day that we get the opportunity to do what we do here in America. Mankind, in most cases, has failed. If we look at the history of man, he's failed. We have never. I was telling my pastor the other day, I said, you know, if I was God, I'd get disgusted and destroy them all. Because we haven't done anything that we were supposed to do. But we have continuously moved an inch at a time in making the necessary changes that are necessary for man to love man. You know.
I guess we learn by our mistakes.
True. We learn by our mistakes, and we also have developed something else. We have developed a unique and a positive way of dealing with our fellow man. We have learned how to accept his shortcomings, while at the same time assisting him to go beyond the level in which he finds himself. And that is by having him confront his shortcomings. We usually don't do that. Most nations don't do that. We do. We live that way. It's America. But I was telling a friend of mine the other day, I said, the one thing about America is that we are unique in that we have overcome each other, you know, and that's a big problem, because in most cases man doesn't overcome. In most cases he usually gets caught up in his own greed and his own shortcomings without addressing the overall needs of society. Here in America, we tend to address societal needs. We tend to do that.
Right.
And it's expected. We expect it of each other. When you elect a city councilman, you expect him to perform and to do certain things. You have a list of things that he's supposed to do, and you look for him to do. If he doesn't do them, he won't get reelected.
Right.
But we work at making government relevant, and that's important.
Well, so I'm curious as to what kind of agency were you a director of?
I was the director of a housing authority and a redevelopment agency
Oh,
in Marin County.
really? Sounds interesting.
It was. I built housing units for housing authorities. I also had an opportunity to rewrite rules and to change things that have been, for years, been wrong. But that comes about through, or by the fact that I was director of the agency. I could make rules that, and write rules that you knew would have some significance.
So one step below president, director of the housing agency, right?
Not one step below. Because what happens is actually the way the forefathers set this thing up, very wise and very good. Every agency has a bit of power. The system was designed so that every place you go, every agency you go into, has a certain area of responsibility that is strictly controlled, regulated, and monitored. So that's what makes our country great, is the fact that the division or diversion of power, it's not in one place. The president doesn't have all the power.
Right.
The director of an agency doesn't have all the power. He can impact and affect it, but he can't, and he can manipulate it if he's sharp enough to do so. But
He doesn't create it.
he doesn't create it. It was created under the Constitution of the United States, which was a very wise document.
Still is.
Yeah. That's what gets you. When you really think about it, our Constitution was written by regular Joes, guys who were struggling to survive and create a country. It was written by regular men. And it's outlasted most institutions in the world. And has more significance and impact than most institutions. I think it has something to do with that they were God-fearing men. I think that helped. But I should be getting questions from you guys.
Do you feel that when the Constitution was created and the reason that it was created, do you find that comforting, knowing that you've served for the country and that the country is based on a document? Do you feel that comfort, knowing that there's something that we can all refer to that divides the power, that creates kind of a, evil?
Well, I guess what I get excited about is the fact that the United States government is a living, breathing thing. It impacts and affects everything we do and can be very instrumental in bringing about change, and has done that. All we got to do is look around us and see what change is taking place as a result of man. As a result of government, we'll put it that way, which is man's reaction. So our government survives because it's alive.
Right.
It's a living thing, a breathing thing. What's ironic about our government is that we can't have a dictatorship because the American people wouldn't stand for it. We give them too much freedom, right? They had too much freedom too long. So and through that process has made a great nation like the United States. It's a process of freedom that brought about all the changes, and it will continue to grow. I don't know what our limits are or where they're going to go, but it's a beautiful country and a beautiful thing to be able to. And I guess what I like about it too is that anytime I want to lodge a protest, I can go to government and do that. If I don't like what the city council done or did, I can always go to City Hall and say, I don't like that, and I think that's wrong, and this is why I think it's wrong. I can voice my opinion. That's what makes America great, is that we can.
Wallace, I found it interesting, beginning of our conversation, you're talking about the racism that you experienced. and the transition over 50 years to see where you are today and what you accomplished being a director of an agency, and still your love of America, even with that racism. I find it a very beautiful experience that you've transitioned to this point, that you can go through all those hardships when you were younger and still be very successful in loving life and loving our country.
Well, I think the reason for that is that I'm sort of a student of history, right? And I was sort of, you know, I think about things that have happened before me, you know. I think about where in the world can an ex-slave become president of the United States or of a country? You know, it's just not going to happen. Where else in the world will we find the things that are written in the law by men in this country, men and women?
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, I get it.
Where else do we find that? Nowhere. Sometimes they come close in France, sometimes they come close in England, sometimes they come close in other countries. And all we got to do is look at the Middle East and see what confusion really is, and what is meant by liberty. Most people in the world don't know what it is or what it means. We're fortunate that we do. You know, that we teach it, we live it, we practice it, and that's what other people don't do.
We familiarize ourselves with it. A lot of the times you'll see on the news, you know, things that go on in Libya, and people are just like, here in America, they just don't really understand it because we're so foreign to that ideal of you don't have a voice, and what we say is what happens or you die. And so we have no idea, and so it's just such a division.
Sometimes I get confused and frustrated because I think we get too close. Sometimes I think our relationship with the Middle East and Far East is too, you know, I don't think we should be seeking world domination or world power.
Right.
And everything we're doing today in terms of international politics is to dominate. You know, and I guess I told a friend of mine the other day, I said, the thing, I would rather be America than anybody else, you know, because at least we can impact in terms of constitutions, we can impact in terms of laws which are written, we can impact in terms of how the rest of the world is treated within that realm. But the real thing is that I really do believe we are God's chosen, you know, because we're the one nation under God that still recognizes who He is and gives great respect, a lot of respect to what He is and what religion is. And if we didn't do that, I don't think we'd get very far. I think we get this through the realm of stupidity is our dedication and commitment to doing the right thing. And as bad as America's been in some cases, we've never done it with malice of forethought. We've done it with malice of forethought, but we've always tended to correct.
There's always some good in the bad.
Yeah, we've always tended to correct our shortcomings.
Right. Just to tie up the end of this interview, is there any story or anything in your life in particular that kind of was a breakthrough, maybe with civil rights, with just, you know, your daily life living in America, that you could tell us that was kind of just a sort of big changing moment that you'd like to share? I know that's kind of vague. Sorry.
I guess what the most, I think the thing that impressed me the most, that had an impact on my life, Martin Luther King. when he was killed, I cried. I cried because he was only one. There was no other. He knew what we had to do, and he kept us headed in the right direction. Some of the people I met through him were like a Reverend Green out of North Carolina. You know, there's so many guys who he left his impact. He left his footprint, right? You know,
Instrumental.
right in the middle of their back, right? You know, he was. I think about it. Sometimes I think about it and I want to cry because there is no other. Nobody's taking his place. There's nobody to take his place. But I think he left at the right time because it was time for him to leave, or he would still be here. You know?
Everything happens for a reason.
Right.
Yeah, I think him being assassinated really was a wake-up call for all the people in the United States who were kind of on the fence of, it's not my problem.
Right.
All of a sudden, yeah, that is my problem.
Right.
Everyone.
Right.
You know,
And that's one of the things that made him great is that he said, hey, this is America. And the problems of America are all our problems. You know, you can't walk away from it. I remember when they were attacking him, you know, and I was in Northern California at the time. And everybody wanted to talk about what he was wrong. You know, that he shouldn't be taking the stand that he took. You know, that he shouldn't be. He should be, you know, he should stick to civil rights. What do you mean deviating from civil rights, you know? He proved he was an American first. That's what was important. And anybody who dealt with him had to deal with the same question. You're an American first. When I was director of agency, I used to say, I'm an American first, and then anything else that comes after that is, you know, subject to. So, that's something that he gave to us. And when he put his own life on the line, that did it to him. You know, you can't. I can remember when they said he was dead. You know, I was in my office in Marin, and I got a phone call saying King was killed today. I had to leave work. But he influenced and had a real impact on my life. I don't know what I've been or where I'd have gone if it wasn't for him. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Even today, he impacts in terms of what we do and how we do it. I get upset because I don't sometimes, well, I'm sitting with young people, so you guys are doing all right. It's nice to know that young people are impacted upon and influenced by what he did and had done. But another thing too, I remember reading his book, The Strength to Love, you know. You get a chance to read that. Tells you who the man was, you know. After reading that book, I called him and said, hey man, you know, this says it all, you know. The strength to love. And I think what it is now we have the opportunity to grow in spite of ourselves because of what he did. You know. But that's I guess that's the major impact. That if anything had an impact on my life, it was MLK. You know.
Now, Wallace, not to be too rude, but we do have to end the interview now because Shirley also would like to sit with us as well.
That's fine.
Is that right with you?
Yeah.
Thank you
And
so
I
much.
appreciate all the effort that you've put to come down here to see
Right.
us
It doesn't bother
and
me.
share your.
It doesn't bother me.
Please write a book, because I want to be one of the people to read it.
I keep
Please,
saying I'm
please
going
write
to
a
do
book.
that. I keep telling my son I got to write my book.
You should, because that would be
Yeah.
something that would be
There's so many
amazing to
things
study.
that I've been through and have done that needs to be committed. But it's also something. It's a teacher. It needs to be available for young people to understand what it was like.
Right.
You know,
Have the
what was
experience.
American like when it was apartheid?
Mhm.
I remember going to in Birmingham, Alabama. You know, when I can remember those days. I can remember getting off a bus and the guy spit at you. You know.
Mhm.
I can remember people wanting to beat you up for no reason.
Wow.
But those were days that were real. You know, I'm glad I went through them because it's something I need to write about. I really do need to write about.
Become stronger.
Yeah. You learn how to live with it.
My little sister was born in Birmingham, Alabama.
No kidding?
Yeah, I'm originally from the South. I'm from the East Coast,
Wow.
in Atlanta, Georgia.
Ah.
So I'm very,
You're from Atlanta?
very familiar with
Ah.
what you speak of.
Well, you grew up in an area where
Still very different.
right, where
Very
racism was a way of life.
Mm-hmm. And it still is.
Yeah.
Still very prominent.
Still prominent.
And it's very interesting because so long ago it seems that things were that way, and
No,
you
it
can
wasn't
still
long ago. It's still that way.
still that way. Mhm.
Yeah.
And you can just still see it. It's in plain sight.
Right. Some people say, you know, really, if it wasn't for the law, you know,
It's very true.
it
It's
would
very
still-
true.
It would still be there, you know.
It still is there sometimes.
Thank goodness for the Supreme Court. You know.
But thank you so much for sharing your stories. I really appreciate it.
Well, I really didn't get a chance to share your stories.
Mhm.
I
We
do
could
need
sit
to
here for
write.
hours.
I do need to write the book.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, please, that book.
Yeah.
I'll really look forward to
I should
reading
write a
it.
book called I Knew Him.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a great title.
Yeah.
You've already got 2 sales.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go. I keep saying I want to do it, but I don't sit down and do it. I need to sit down and do it. And I got my computer upstairs. I need to go in and do
Oh,
it.
yeah. That sounds perfect.
So, what do you want me to do now?
I'm going to help you up and get your walker,
Okay.
and I'll take care of this coffee cup. Don't worry
I'll
about it.
leave it there.
We'll leave it here.